June 8, 1998. There was confusion in the whole of Nigeria. Sani Abacha, the man who controlled everything, was dead. No illness anyone could point to, no coup announcement on the radio, just silence. Because this wasn't supposed to happen. Just like that, the most feared man in Nigeria, gone overnight. People didn't just ask what happened, they asked something deeper. How does a man who helped plan multiple coups, outmaneuvered rivals for years, and ruled an entire country with absolute control, die at the exact moment he seemed untouchable? See, Abacha didn't stumble into power. He studied it. He moved around it. And when the time was right, he took it. And that's what made his death so unsettling. Because when a man like that died overnight, you don't just ask what happened. You start asking, who was waiting for him to be gone? To understand how Abacha rose to power and what led to his death, you have to go back to how Abacha didn't chase power like everyone else. He waited. He positioned himself. And when the moment came, he didn't take power by accident. To him, it was his turn.
Sani Abacha was never the loudest man in the room. He wasn't charismatic. He didn't need to be. He was quiet, patient, and very deliberate. Born in 1943 in Kano, Abacha entered the Nigerian army early and trained in the UK. But his real education didn't come from textbooks. It came from watching how power actually worked in Nigeria. On paper, it looked like a normal military career. But Nigeria in the 1980s wasn't normal. Power didn't change through elections. It changed through force. And Abacha understood that faster than most people do. Sani Abacha was easy to underestimate. By the 1980s, Abacha had already placed himself at the center of the most powerful institution in the country, the military. And that's where the pattern begins. While others were reacting to coups, he was already inside them. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly. In 1983, he was part of the coup that brought Muhammadu Buhari to power. Then 2 years later, in 1985, he was involved again, this time helping remove Muhammadu Buhari and install Ibrahim Babangida. And by now, something should start to feel off, because the faces keep changing, but one face.
1993 was already falling apart. Nigeria had just held what many still consider its freest election. The election was won by Moshood Abiola, but the result never stood. Ibrahim Babangida, the head of state as at then, annulled it. And just like that, hope turned into anger. Protests spread across Nigeria. Tension built. Nigeria became unstable. So, the military did what it often does in moments like that. They tried to manage the crisis. An interim government was set up under Ernest Shonekan. On the surface, it looked like a solution, but in reality, it was a pause. The interim government was weak. It had no real authority because the military still make the final decision. And everyone inside the system could see it, especially Sani Abacha. By this point, Abacha wasn't guessing anymore if he should move. He understood exactly how fragile power could be because he had seen it collapse so many times. So on November 17, 1993, he made his move. No long speech, no public resistance, no drawn-out struggle. He simply removed Shonekan with ease and took control. Sani Abacha is now the new head of state. And from that moment, Nigeria didn't just change, it closed in on itself, and then he made his next move. Democratic structures were dismantled. Political activity was shut down. Opposition voices didn't fade. They were forced into silence. Abacha control didn't come from policy alone. It came from fist hand and fear. People were detained without trial. Journalists were picked up. Activists disappeared. Even within the military, suspicion grew. Alleged coup plots surfaced again and again, and each one was made the same way. Arrests, detentions, executions. Because Abacha didn't just want power, he wanted control that couldn't be challenged. And over time, that control hardened into something else.
Paranoia monster. Trust disappeared. Loyalty became uncertain. And the system he built started feeding on itself. The media was silenced. Civil liberties were stripped away. Nigeria became more isolated from the rest of the world. And then, one event pushed that isolation even further. And then came 1995. Abacha's role stopped being just a Nigerian story and became a global one. Ken Saro-Wiwa wasn't a politician. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't trying to overthrow the government. He was a writer, an environmental activist, speaking for communities in the Niger Delta, calling out the environmental damage caused by oil operations in the Niger Delta region.
But in a system like Abacha's, even words could become a threat. Sani Abacha regime didn't just see protests, it saw threats. Saro-Wiwa and 8 others were arrested, tried by a military tribunal, and sentenced to death. The trial was widely criticized. Questions about fairness, there were pressure and political interference. But none of that slowed anything down. Because the point wasn't justice, it was control. Then came the decision that shocked Nigeria and the world. Saro-Wiwa and 8 others were executed. Not quietly, not secretly, but in a way that sent a message. This government would not tolerate opposition. And the message was clear. No one was untouchable. Not activists, not voices of the people, not even those with global attention. The reaction was immediate. Governments condemned it. Sanctions followed. Nigeria was suspended.
By 1998, Sani Abacha wasn't just in power. He had closed every gap around it. Opposition had been silenced. Institutions had been weakened. Fear had done its job. And then came the final move. A transition to civilian rule was announced. On paper, it looked like progress, freedom at last. But in reality, every political party endorsed one candidate, Abacha, a military ruler preparing to become a civilian president. Same man, same control, different title. Nigeria wasn't moving toward democracy. It was moving towards something else entirely. A system where power never really changes hands. And at the same time, resistance hadn't completely died. It had gone quiet, careful, underground. But it was still there. Reports continued to emerge of activists, especially in the oil-producing regions, being detained, targeted, and silenced. The pressure didn't ease. If anything, it tightened. No opposition would survive. Abacha had secured the system. Or at least, that's what it looked like.
June 8, 1998. Everything stopped. Abacha was dead. Suddenly, unexpectedly. Officially, a heart attack. But
Almost immediately, the stories began. Poisoning, internal betrayal, power struggles behind closed doors. There was no clear answer, and maybe there never will be. Because men who build systems like that don't usually leave clean endings. But here's what's not debated. The moment he was gone, everything he built started to loosen. Political prisoners were released. Power shifted to Sani Abacha. And within a year, Nigeria returned to civilian rule. And that change was made very fast. Almost too fast. As if the system had been held together by one man and couldn't survive without him. But the damage didn't disappear. It stayed in weakened institutions, in lost trust, and in the billions of dollars, often referred to as Abacha loot, allegedly moved out of the country and hidden abroad. A legacy that outlived the
Abacha's story isn't just about power.
It's about what happens when power is built on control instead of accountability. Because for years, he outplayed everyone, outlasted every rival, closed every door to get to him. But in the end, none of that gave him control over how his story would end. And that's the real lesson. You can dominate a system. You can silence people. You can make yourself look untouchable. But power built that way doesn't last. It just waits for the moment everything becomes undone.
Please like, share, and subscribe.